Jacinda Ardern.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's my pleasure to make another contribution to the debate on the Parental Leave and Employment Protection Bill. As you've pointed out, we are only debating new clause 6, which is very specific in that it's a clause which amends the both the length of leave, but also narrows the criteria for those who are eligible for parental leave. All of the reasons why that has been done have been well traversed in this House, and it is obviously with some reluctance from the original drafter of the bill that we're now looking at the consideration of that eligibility now, that extended eligibility only being for those families where they have 3 criteria: multiple births during one gestation, it's clear in the bill, premature births, and those who have who give birth to a child that has a disability. I wanted to ask a couple of questions based on that criteria, though, of the member in the chair. It was raised by my colleague Chris Hipkins a few questions around this, which I wanted to support and add in a different one. In the new clause 6, it states that this clause applies to one or more children before 37 weeks of gestation where the child or children survive birth for the duration of the parental leave payment, or to a child whose impairment would entitle the person to a government-funded disability support service. Would that be within Ministry of Education guidelines or, for instance, work and income guidelines? Because obviously there are disability allowances that are within work and income that I think probably have a broader criteria than you're likely to get within the very narrow scope that the Ministry of Education applies for extra entitlements for children. So just which criteria for that government-funded disability support? I'd hope it would be reasonably broad. The other additional interesting issue, I guess, is that there are some impairments or disabilities that are not yet recognised by the government or receive government-funded support directly, but have a significant effect on a parent or caregiver. 2 particular types of support that are now becoming a bit more frequent are for children who are born with fetal alcohol syndrome, for instance. Now, the Ministry of Social Development is increasingly, I think, putting in additional support around caregivers who may be caring for children who are found to have fetal alcohol syndrome, but it's not well developed. It seems to be ad hoc. I don't believe there's a firm government policy yet. There should be. The Health Select Committee, which did some excellent work under Paul Hutchison on the first 100 days of a child's life, did look at the need for us to do more work around fetal alcohol syndrome and to formulate a plan. I think probably the country who's done the most and who has gone the furthest has been Canada. They have a way of recognising and diagnosing, which we have not, is not yet well established in New Zealand. So it's a bit ad hoc, but I would like to think that it would be one of the eligible, would be eligible under this clause. So just some clarification from the member in the chair as to whether or not that would be, she would anticipate that as well. Equally, children who are perhaps born to parents who are on methadone program, it may not be that those parents have ongoing care of that child. Often, frequently, these children are removed. I note that the clause would, of course, allow caregivers to be eligible for this as well, which I think is really important. But a child who is born with, who will be experiencing, often actually they are premature, so they're probably covered that way. But for those who would not be, who may be, often remain hospitalised because of essentially the addiction they are born with and therefore withdraw from. That has additional costs as well. Now, it wouldn't be considered probably a government-funded disability, but it certainly has significant consequences. So did the member consider, for instance, whether length of stay in hospital become a criteria? Because premature birth obviously indicates that, yes, that would be the case. But I know of families, for instance, where children are born with heart conditions. It may not be considered a long-term disability, but it is a health impairment that at that time requires lengthy hospitalisation, and I do think it is worthy of consideration.
Chair.